Hi guys, this is Carolyn from All Things Effie, and I am back with the AK 2-in-1 tufting gun, and I am going to show you how to change the cut pile height of this gun. So we're going to go from 15 millimeters to 11 millimeters. A more drastic change in pile height makes it easier to see how the different pieces have to move in order to change the pile height. So there are a few things that need to be changed in order to change the cut pile height. One is the scissor opener. So this little piece moves the scissor opener forward or back. The scissor opener is that wee piece there, if you can see it. It's black. I think it's actually silver on some of the AK ones now. So that needs to be moved either back or forward, depending. Then you also have the scissor closer, which also needs to be moved either forward or back, depending on what cut pile height you're going for. And then you also have this very important distance here between this flush part of the scissors and the pusher foot is what I call that. This distance here is very important. It must be set to what your pile height is meant to be. So we'll have to probably make some adjustments when we change the pile height of this pusher foot. And I'll show you how to do that. It's not hard. All right, so let's, I want to loosen this. And I don't want to reposition it. I just want to loosen it so that everything can move freely without getting caught on that scissor opener. Similarly, I'm going to loosen this as well, so that, again, we're not over-closing the scissors or under-closing the scissors, where we're not causing any problems to the gun while we're making changes. So, the first big step is to move along the cogwheel to a different groove. And we are going to move to the 15 millimeter groove, or sorry, from the 15 millimeter groove to the 11 millimeter groove. And I've just paused for a quick second to show you the different parts that are used in this next process, so that you can refer back to this if you're getting confused. And hopefully it explains what I'm talking about. You need to, depending on your gun, you're going to need to be a bit careful with this because sometimes the nut that is on the other side that this bolt here screws into can be either really tight or it can be a little bit loose. So if it's loose, it will easily slip out and it's hard to get back into place. So I'm just going to show you what you should try first. And then if you can't move this properly, then I'll show you what to do next. So first of all, you want to take your Allen key and you want to loosen this like so, and just loosen it a bit until you've got some space to wiggle things around. And you're going to just see if you can nudge the whole screw and not, if you can nudge it over. So what I'm trying to do is move this back, but I know that my nut on the back of here is too tight to move without actually taking this out and forcing it. So that's why I'm saying try this first to see if you can move it. If you can't, then it's obviously too tight and then you need to take it out and do it this way. So I take out the screw. This is the special, I guess you'd call it a washer that's got the grooves to sit in those holes. And we're just going to because this is so tight, I'm going to use the Allen key to just shift it over there. Then so you can see now this nut is now aligned with the 11 millimeter pile height right there. So I am going to then put back the, I guess we call it a washer, and then we're going to put the bar back on, and we're going to put the screw back in. It can be a bit fiddly just because you got to get it lined up. Okay. There we go. So I'm just going to tighten that down. And before I completely tighten it, I'm just going to make sure it is nicely lined up on that groove, and that you can't see it very well here, but to make sure that washer is flush too, so that it's not going to catch on the actual outside of the gun. All right, so we're good to go. So I'm just going to tighten that down like so. And now we're ready to make the other adjustment. Okay, so once we've repositioned the screw, we're now going to focus on some of the other parts that need to be adjusted. I have figured out exactly where these pieces need to be placed, so that you can kind of quickly get to 11 millimeter pile height, instead of fiddling around as much as I've had to get them exactly right. So yeah, I'll give you this measuring tool if you purchase the AK 2-in-1 or something very, very similar, and I will also give you a guide as well to the different pile heights. So the first thing is that at 11 millimeters, I know that this distance has to be 17.1 millimeters, that is. So I am going to go to 17.1. Gotta move this bit a bit. Oh, I think I've gotten it kind of stuck there, sorry. There we go. So I'm going to move it over or up. Whoops. Okay. So that's 17.1. I'm just gonna double check with my digital calipers, because I haven't worked with those other ones very much. So, oh, I'm in inches now. Whoops. There we go. So that's exactly 17.1. So I will screw that down, because that should be the right placement of the scissor opener. And then I'm going to move to this part, which is still loose, right? Because we loosened it. And I know that that has to be 0. So it's actually at 11 millimeters. This piece should be absolutely flush with the top. So you can see, just absolutely flush. Just put it wherever the lowest setting is and screw it tight. Okay, so now when we rotate everything, the scissors should open and close as though nothing has changed. Probably got to go through one cycle before we can prove that. So they're open. They are closing nicely. They could probably close a teensy bit more, but so maybe we'll move that slightly. Just making sure the scissors are opening enough. Yep. Okay, so that's all good. Okay, so the last thing we need to do is to make sure the distance between this part of the scissors and this pusher foot is 11 millimeters. So let's just use our measuring tool to see where it's at. It's at 16.4 at the moment. So we need to make this pusher foot come forward. So how do we do that? We loosen this screw here to get this bar out of the way. That's not going to affect your gun at all, so don't worry about it. It's just so you can get at this smaller screw here. So this, we are going to loosen a couple turns. That's going to allow us to move the pusher foot up and down without actually having to take apart the gun. Don't loosen this fully though, because then the gun's actually going to, you're going to have to take it apart to put it all back together. Okay, so let's loosen that a bit. It was already a little bit loose, and I'm going to then, usually what I do is I grab tweezers and I just give it a tug. It's actually quite loose right now, so that was good. And I'm going to just remeasure. That's at 12.4, so it needs to go a bit further. Let's use the tweezers, it just works easier. Okay. That's 11.6. So that should be almost perfect. Now, that is, oh, we're at 10.5 now, so we might have to go down a bit further. 10.7. So I'm just going to give it a teeny tiny knock. I have this like, I'm going to try and get these for you guys for the kits, but it's just like a little tiny hammer that came with putting together shelves, and it actually works really, really well to just tap that just down a tiny bit to get it to where you want it to go. So I'm just going to measure that. Perfect. So if I go straight up and down, I am at, straight up and down measurement is quite difficult with the calipers, but we're at about 10.5, so maybe we need to go down a little bit lower. And we're at 11.1, so that is pretty much bang on. If you're, it's better to test it once you get that close and just see how the gun performs. And if you're having some troubles, then you could probably move it either forward a bit or back a bit, depending. And I'll explain that in better detail as we go. So I am now going to tighten this screw so that we don't lose that setting. This is unfortunately a really teeny tiny screw to close. You can see that an adjustable wrench is quite important to have with this gun. Okay. I'm almost nice and tight. Sweet, there we go. So I'll get that screw back. I'm going to put the bar back on and tighten this. And again, if you watched any of my other videos, it's, you know, these are machines and they're going to be moving quite quickly. So it's really important that you tighten everything really well, because you don't want, as the machine's running and turning and vibrating, you don't want something to shake loose and cause issues. So let's just double check that that's all running nice and smooth. we did have that problem of the scissors not quite closing, so let's see if we can fix that a bit. I'm going to see if I can maybe knock this down a tiny bit more. Don't think it can go much lower though. Okay, so I tried to kind of move this down a little bit further, but the 11 is quite difficult because it's sort of like right on the edge of where this piece can move to in terms of creating the right pile height. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go off camera and tuft with this and show you guys how it works. Okay? Hi guys! Sorry about the wet hair. I am now here with the AK2-in-1 set to 11 millimeters, and I'm going to demonstrate it tufting. Okay, so turn the gun on, red light. All right, you can see it works really, really nicely. Let's take a closer look. So as you can see, it tufts really nice and neatly. And sorry, I was just kind of randomly making lines. So the one thing is if you get it to this point and the yarn is bubbling, try to see if I have an example of what I mean. It means you have to change where the pusher foot is. So this is what I mean by bubbling. So the thread is just not getting pushed through the cloth the way to the depth it should be. So if that happens, then you need to actually move this pusher foot, the piece that we, adjusted earlier. This needs to be then incrementally shifted back if it's bubbling, as I just showed you. But ours is not, so it's in the right spot. And I think if you remember, it was at about 11.1, so that would be why it is working. So yeah, let's move on to the next part of how to use this gun.